recording again. It always starts recording right when I get in, so I pause it 'cause I'm like, no one wants to watch a video of me just letting people in the room babbling. So, all right, we're recording now. We're good to go. If any of you want to rewatch this. So I'm going to start off class today by going over the next 3 weeks of assignments because I'm not going to lie, you have another group thing to do, but this one is pretty easy. Again, it's just going over the mission statement of your project, the vision statement, some objectives, and just your values to the project. And I'm going to show you a student example, and I think you might go, I feel a lot better than that because they had everything on one page. So hopefully that'll be good. And so we don't have enough time today, but I'm just going to go over the assignment for you today and give you a chance to think about some stuff. And then next week, hopefully you'll have some stuff drafted, and we're going to just make sure we go over values and mission statement, vision statements, objectives. So hopefully you can have your draft with you and go, okay, cool. My objective is SMART. It's measurable, it's timely. Okay, I'm good to go. Instead of me teaching it to you, because sometimes this happens to me, especially in my program planning class, you can read like, oh yeah, I know all the steps to precede, proceed. I know what a fishbone diagram is. Yeah, that makes sense. And then when you have to do it yourself, you're like, shoot, I don't know what category this goes in. Is this a social assessment or epidemiological assessment, right? So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of get stuff down on paper, and then we'll go over it, and then you can be like, okay, I need to fix this or it's right. So we're going to do that today. We do have a couple weeks coming off in October where we don't meet because I think it's like fall break. Let me admit someone real quick. So we have fall break, and then I'm in Knoxville for our CEEP accreditation. All the faculty need to be there. So we have like a couple weeks off. So during that time, you're gonna do your negotiation assignment with someone in the class. And I just assigned it today. So we're gonna go over that a bit too today. So like, okay, how do I conduct this interview? So basically what that is half of you are assigned the employer and the other half of you are assigned the applicant. So hi cuties. So you will, during that class period we'll have off, you'll meet with that person, and it's just like one person will do a role play of pretending they're conducting an interview, and somebody else will pretend like they're applying for the job, getting hired. So I'll assign all that stuff. We'll go over that, and there is always one part. And last semester, like the students just got so confused on it. They're like, why can't I find this on Canvas? Why can't I find the description? Well, I can't just post it. Like, hey, here's your hand for the, how much you can offer salary wise and what you're looking for, because the person applying can't see what the employer has to offer, right? And then the employer shouldn't know what the employee is thinking. So you're going to have that separately. So I'm just going to send an email after class to all the people who are assigned employers, and you'll know the description, and then they're happy you will get your others. And then don't share that with the person that you're interviewing. Obviously, don't be like, hey, I'm allowed to offer you up to $90,000, so come in at that, right? Like, don't do any of that stuff. Don't, just keep it all to yourself. All right. So with that being said, let me just go to my PowerPoint slides. And today we're going to talk about leadership, particularly chapter 11. We don't really have time today to go over chapter 12. So we're going to go over chapter 11, and I do want to save time. We'll actually end with this. I'm going to cut myself off. I get so confused time zone wise. My phone says 4:20 and my computer is 7:20, and I'm like, what time is it? So let's say around like 7:50. Cut me off if I'm not done by then, and we will go over all the assignments. You'll know who your partner is, all that fun stuff too. So these are the main topics that are coming up. I'll go over all the assignments this week and show you how to do it, as well as what's due next week and the following week. Or, let's be real. Let's just go over the assignments first, because I want to make sure that you all know that. So, all right, let's do that. So, because I would hate for there to not be enough time. So, if you go to the module for this week, I did have to change something from this summer, because we do in the, where is it at? In the, so if you go right here, there's the Institute for Healthcare Improvement activity. And they offer these free modules on the website, and they're really cool. And you used to be able to get a certificate, and I don't know if they realized a lot of people were doing it and they maybe could make money on it. So when I logged in on it yesterday to double check everything, the courses that I usually had students take weren't free anymore, and you don't get a certificate. So I was like, okay, well, that's a bummer. So I went on the website to see what modules were free, and there were 3. So I don't think they all can relate to everyone in the class. So you'll see that there's one about introduction to healthcare improvement, one about building skills for anti-racism work, and providing age-friendly care to older adults. And some of you might be going, these are such random topics. Hopefully one of those can relate to you. Like, say, for example, I know we have some nurses in the class, like maybe, the healthcare improvement one would be interesting for you. Or maybe, you're really big on working with older adults and gerontology, then this one might be interesting to you. And I apologize. There was definitely some I wish I could have chosen, but I don't want to make you pay $99 for a certificate that you don't even need for the class. So if you go on this website right here, and you click on curriculum and credits right here, these are all the different quality improvement, patient safety courses that they have. So, maybe if you are interested in something, I don't know what the price is exactly, but these are all the different courses here. And so, see, like here, this is the age-friendly course.
Stuck on your
So
PowerPoint.
Yeah, we can't see. We
Oh
can't
my
see what you're talking about.
you haven't seen anything? Oh my goodness.
No.
All right, let's start again. Share screen.
Yeah, we just saw your presentation mode, not the
Okay.
actual PowerPoint.
All right, I suck. All right, let's go to this. Okay, let me backtrack real quick and I won't be as long-winded. So can you see this module right here? Okay, thank you. All right, so this is, I don't have to repeat all the stuff about the free courses, but this is the link that you would go on right here. And or if you already just know off the top of your head what topic you want to work on, you can just click on the link here. But if you go right here to this link and then you click right here on curriculum and credits, you don't have to make an account anymore because you're not going to get a certificate, unfortunately. It's just view only. But let's say, for example, you wanted to do this introduction to healthcare right here. You would just click that course for free. And this is kind of like an articulate rise lesson. And it shows like the estimated time. So 1 hour and 15 minutes. I don't think it really will take you that long to do, but, just go through it, look at, you don't have to read all that stuff, but, just, go through what looks important to you. Like, say, for example, you want to read about low-income nations and what about healthcare in parts of the world with fewer resources are available to devote to healthcare costs. So, just go through this, look at all the things that are interesting to you. And then what you're going to go next is you're going to hit the next button on the module. And this is where we're going to have a discussion board on it. So you don't have to prove to me or upload any like completion certificate like students have in the past because you don't get one anymore. So what I want you to do is then just go on the discussion board and you're just going to, I have here your discussion board post should be about 3 to 4 paragraphs. A paragraph in APA is anywhere from 3 to 5 sentences. So you can keep it short, answer these questions here. I just don't want you to write, what module did you do? The aging one. What information did you learn? Nothing. I knew it all. What information was new to you? Nothing. Like, I did try to get, thank you for laughing, Natasha. So trying to just get like, some information out of you. And so you don't have to answer a paragraph for each question. You can combine some stuff. Maybe something was really interesting to you and that's what you want to focus your discussion board on. How does this content contribute to your knowledge? How might, this contribute to professional development? Maybe it really doesn't, but just try to think of a way that it could maybe help you be a better public health professional or whatever you do. And then just any thoughts or question you have, and then make sure you do comment on one other person, and you just need a minimum of a paragraph to them. Sound good there for that? Okay. So, oh, good. We already got people doing it. Nice work. Thank you. All right, so then let's go back to the module. So we have that post, that discussion, and then I'm trying to do discussion boards a little different for this class because sometimes like there just might not be a topic that resonates with you, or maybe you're really interested in something else. So I don't want to limit you all to that. And sometimes if you're in a bigger class and there's just one prompt, it can get a little boring if everyone's saying the exact same thing and it gets to that point too where you're like, yeah, Christine, I agree with you, or yeah, Laura, you're so right. Something like that. Like it might be nice, like if someone writes about something different than you, and they can be like, oh, I didn't do that activity, blah, 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 blah. So if you go here to discussion need for collaborative leadership right here, you're just going to pick one of these questions here. So good job. So you're just going to pick some of the things, any of these questions to answer, or if you don't like any of my prompts, please come up with something else. If there's another question And say you're like, you know, I was really interested in Percy's situational leadership model, and I have a perfect example of this. When I worked at so-and-so and you want to talk about that model, go ahead. That's completely fine. That can bring a lot of insight to the class. So for this, your original post should just be a minimum of 5 complete sentences, and your response to your peer should just be a minimum of 5 complete sentences. So this is a perfect example of something I'd like to see here. And just maybe write, yeah, exactly what prompts you want to talk about so people know what you're saying there. Perfect example. Thank you so much. So those are the 2 discussions this week, the one about the presentation you do, and then one based off reading, and then the weekly quiz is just normal as always. So I'm gonna stop here. Any questions about this week's assignments? Yeah, I echo that, Laura. All right. It's very impressive considering that I don't think I even had the module open on time this morning. I did it. Yeah, I know. I'm striking out today. I don't know what's going on with me. I did it in my other class too. So, all right. So we're good to go for this week. Hopefully nothing too challenging, fun topic with leadership. So then the next thing I want to go over is the assignment that's due next week. So if you go right here to, this is where all the integrated assignments are. And if at any point I'm not sharing correctly, just unmute yourself and yell at me because I might miss a hand being raised or chat. So what one's coming up next? October 8th. This is your team vision, mission, values, and objective draft. So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework to work on by yourself before next week, and then we can talk about it next week before we submit our paper for that. And I will grade your assignments tomorrow. It's been a busy day prepping and doing all my courses today. So I'll look over your group projects tomorrow for that and give you some feedback so you can add it to this. So what you're going to do for this is you can create it as a paper or a PowerPoint slide. Doesn't really matter to me. So what you're just going to do is you're going to come up with the vision, mission, values, and objectives for your group project. So whatever your topic is, what's your vision statement? What's your mission statement? What are some values that you have? And what are some objectives for the group? So this is just an example that a group had last semester, and theirs had to be in paper format. So you can do it in paper format or PowerPoint. Again, I don't care. So their vision was just super short, sweet, easily accessible, quality healthcare for all Tennesseans. And that's one thing I do want to point out. Like someone's vision statement, I had to correct it, was like easily accessible, quality healthcare for the world. Like we're not the world. Like we're focusing on Tennessee right now, maybe even a particular county. And then the vision, our mission statement's a little more detailed. So, you know, again, just the sentence was perfectly fine here. And their values that they had were community driven, empowerment, equity, outreach, and sustainability. And one thing that students sometimes did miss was not describe their values. So they just did a perfect example here, just describing what each value meant. And then the objectives, just 3, what they plan to do. And we'll go over SMART objectives, make sure you all know that next week as well. But they just came up with 3 different objectives that their program wants to accomplish before the end of 2023. So that's all you need to do. You might be thinking, well, how do I split this up as a group? That's completely up to you. I would maybe let each person come up with one objective and one value. And then you can submit it all together, maybe on a Google Doc, and just come up with values and objectives. And then you go in and edit it like, oh, you know, this was who am I going to call in here? Like, oh, Maddie, this was a great objective, but it's not timely, or what's measurable in this right here. Like, so they have at least 5 healthcare administrators, so that's measurable there. So you can add that there. And then sometimes it's nice to sometimes getting a vision statement or mission statement can be really challenging. I've been in like group settings where we all just kind of sit there and we like just kind of like come up with it on our own, and then we all come together and we share stuff and we just put words together and, you know, oh, I like this word, or let's change this. And so it's always just a work in progress to get that perfect statement. So that's kind of how I would do it. Or maybe just, hey, you 2 come with the vision, you do mission, we all do values and objectives. Whatever way you want to do is completely up to you. So that's going to be the assignment due 2 Sundays from now. Any questions about that one? Okay. I think it's nice when we break it up into a lot of smaller pieces, and then we can just move forward with the final project than just doing it all at once. So that's all we have for that one. And then this one, please again, stop me at any time because my students were very confused last summer doing this project. And that's why I'm talking about it earlier, just to make sure, because I think what I did last time was I put them in groups on Canvas. And so you were in a group and then you had to find all your information. And I'm learning that groups just don't really work well. People don't know how to access it. They don't understand it. So I'm just going to avoid the groups. And I'm just going to send emails out to everybody. So you have your information. So let me go to my PowerPoint slide real quick. I'm going to keep this one up for a second so you can all see who your partners are. Whoops, let's go here. Okay, so I just randomly put people down. And so you're either an employer or an applicant. So the employer is the person conducting an interview, and I have all your scripts done. So this is a job. So those of you who are the employers, you work at a health department and there's a new position coming up and you're hiring someone. And so you have like your like what you're looking for, how much you can offer vacation wise, how much you can offer salary wise, what you're looking for, things like that. And then the applicant knows like, hey, this is like this is the minimum salary I need, or I need this or that. And so you're going to kind of conduct an interview, and the employer gets the opportunity to offer them a job, to go over all that stuff, because we're going to go over a negotiation, I believe in next week or the following week. So this is just like an example to actually practice, you know, if you're interviewing for a job, because it can get really hard. Also, why I have this up, maybe if you want to like direct message someone in the group, if you don't really know them very well, and just be like, hey, here's my email or phone number, or you can just put it in the group chat if you don't care, so your partner can see it. But I know, for example, for women sometimes, my husband was telling me about a study one of his classmates did for their DNP project, and it was talking about how like when women in particular interview for jobs after graduation, on average for CRNAs, I could be making this up, but I think it was like their starting salary is about $10,000 less than their male counterparts because they aren't as good at negotiation, or maybe I don't know if it's the confidence or what she found from her survey, but it was going over this and to teach women in particular how to have good negotiation strategies and confidence and what questions to ask during an interview. And so this might feel a little bit awkward, like negotiating or asking for things, but it's good practice, right? Like, I mean, because sometimes I know for example, I've never negotiated, I've never once in my life negotiated salary. I was just say, okay, sounds good, right? And I mean, because I'm just, you know, so grateful I got the job. But one thing, I'm gonna stop sharing this for a second so I can see all, but like, one thing, for example, that I did for this job that I was actually really proud of, because I never asked for anything. Yeah, exactly. You need to negotiate every time, because usually they're not going to give you they're not, let's say their max is, oh, we can offer you $80,000. They're not just going to come out and say, we have $80,000 for you, right? They are probably going to say like, starting salary is 72,000. What do you think about it? You know, or you go back and forth, and so you can get to that win-win strategy. But I was just, you know, really excited, but I did ask, I was like, hey, can I have a laptop and a monitor and all that stuff? Because like, that's really important for me to start my job. Like I have a crappy laptop and I obviously like need new equipment. And he was just like, absolutely. What else do you need? It's like, oh, he's got jobs. He was nice. It wasn't that hard. And then there's also other things that you can negotiate for too. It's not always just salary. So one thing, so we actually moved out here. If you don't know a little bit about me, we moved out here about 1.5 years ago from Indiana to Arizona, and we were broke. My husband just graduated from school with a bunch of debt. I found out I was pregnant. We moved all by ourselves, and one thing he negotiated for was a big sign-in bonus, and he asked if he could get that a month before his job started. I was like, I don't know, just see what happens, right? And they said they could give him half a month before he moved out, and the other one with his first paycheck. So that saved us a lot, because that was during the time when gas was like $80 a gallon. I mean, you know, it's like $6 a gallon or whatever it was. And then another thing people might negotiate for is vacation time, right? That's always, I mean, in academia, I'm not going to negotiate vacation time because you work during the semester, but you know, maybe you get a job and they're like, you know, we offer 3 weeks vacation, and you're like, what about 4? What about 5? What are some other things? Maybe you can negotiate something like, I get to work from home one day. or this towards my retirement. I don't know. There's lots of different things. So this is going to give you the opportunity to practice asking those questions and actually think about what, and you don't want to be ridiculous, right? Like, so say if, you know, starting salary for a specific job, 60,000, you don't want to be like, all right, I want 98,000, 15 weeks vacation, right? Stuff like that. Like, you have to be like, you have to, you know your knowledge a little bit, so they don't feel like, what are you talking about? So that's what we're gonna do here. And I'm gonna pull up my screen real quick, and I'll post the list of who everyone's partners are again. Oh, also, I did want to point out, where is it? Tamara and Laura, you guys get to be co-employers who are getting to conduct the interview, because we have an odd number in this class because, as some of you know, Dan had to drop the class. So I actually like doing co-interviews. It's kind of nice. You can go back and forth on questions, but just know ahead of time like what you plan to say for different things. So that is all right. Let me actually pull up. I don't think I have this actually available for you yet, so just bear with me, because I'm just I just want you to see the actual assignment, and then I'll get you your scripts soon. Okay, so I'm not even sure where this would be. I know it's later on in the semester. Okay, so this is the pre-negotiation application. So this is what you're going to conduct, or you're going to fill out before you meet with your partner and do the interview. So this isn't even for a long time. I just want to get this in the back of your head. And I will post this early in case you want to work on it, because we haven't even learned this information yet or anything, but this is just what's going to be coming up soon. So you're going to have your script, and this is what you're going to use to fill this out. I had students last semester who were very confused and thought that they were, like, say for example, I don't know, I remember this, Laura, it might just because we're talking about it, you were assigned policy analyst. That has nothing to do with this activity. So I had people who were like, oh, I'm a policy analyst. What was the starting salary? And that's what they based off. And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry you wasted your time, because the other person you are doing this with, they have a different role. So everyone's applying for this position as a health educator. And so you're going to look up some starting salaries for that position, and it's all in the script I'll give you. What gives you an edge for this position? So like, maybe I'm more qualified for this person because I have this certificate, or I did X or I did Y. And you're just going to go over this. I'm not going to go over this in detail because we haven't even learned what all this stuff means yet. But when I say we have that negotiation assignment coming up, that's what it is. And I will give you all this stuff well in advance, because I know sometimes schedules don't match up, or this might take you a little bit longer, and some people might want to just get this done sooner than later, and that's completely fine with me. So I'll have this available for you next week to work on, because I know in October we have a few weeks off. So you guys can all pick a Tuesday maybe that works well for you when we aren't meeting, or that you both have Fridays off work and you're like, hey, let's meet Friday at noon. You can do that. So this is just kind of where we're going with the semester for like the next month. Any questions about any of this? No?
Hey, Professor, I'm sorry. So this
Okay.
assignment is not due next week, it's due in 2 weeks?
So that paper I'm talking about, that pre-negotiation thing, that one is due 3 Sundays from now.
Okay.
So you don't even have to meet with your partner. You just fill that out by yourself. But I just want to give you time to get it done. So say for example, you and Emily are partners. I don't remember who's partners. And you and Emily both are just like overachievers, and you just want to get it done this Sunday. And then you want to conduct your interview and get it done, and great, then you don't have to worry about it all month. But you don't even have to fill out your pre-negotiation assignment until 3 Sundays from now, and then you have time to conduct your interview. I just want to give you all the time to be prepared, because sometimes a week isn't enough to do stuff. So if I can just, I don't want to overwhelm you by giving you so much up front, but I also don't want to cause panic at the end of the semester. And you're like, I have to conduct my leadership interview with someone. I have to do this group project and apply. So I'm just giving it to you all now, and so you can decide what you want to do with it. So excellent question. Anything else? Sorry, missed a lot in the chat. Yeah. All right. Nor you don't get you get 2 interviewers, but you don't have to get interview choice. That wouldn't be fun. All right, so I'm gonna pull up our slides for today, and we're just gonna talk about leadership a little bit, and hopefully you find this to be just a little, can you see my slides first of all? Okay, all right. Hopefully you just find this to be a little bit relaxing and fun, and if at any time you wanna share a story about leadership or anything like that, feel free to. And I mean, you can talk about leadership for a whole semester, right? So we're just going to try to go over a couple things in chapter 11, maybe discuss some things that you would do in a situation. And I'm just going to close by sharing some great leadership quotes by Michael Scott. I mean, because how else do you end a leadership lesson? Hopefully it's pretty much the opposite. All right, so there's tons of different theories to look at on leadership in chapter 11. So some of them say, we've all heard those things like you're born a leader, or leaders can be made. Which one is it? Leaders need to be disciplined and task oriented, or leaders need to be compassionate and get along with their staff. Which one is it? So we're going to look at a lot of different things, and the truth is leadership styles can change based off what job you have, who you're working with, all those things. And so the first one we're going to look at is Fiedler's contingency theory. And we're going to look at the case study in particular on page 199, because I think this is a good example of what some of you might even have experienced in work. And I know I've experienced situations like this before. So this one's really basic. These charts I think can sometimes be more confusing than what they actually are. But so for example, this one's on page 189. If you have your textbook now, would be a good time to whip it out. But if you're in your car at work or something, you don't need it. But so it's basically just saying if you want a very favorable situation, the leader-member relations with their staff needs to be good. The task structure needs to be high, and the power position should be strong. And if it's a poor, weak, or low, it's typically going to be an unfavorable situation. So for example, if you look at here, if you're clear and responsible and your employee knows what they're going to do, it's probably going to be a very favorable situation. Have you ever been assigned an assignment, don't say in this class, or a work task, and you're like, I don't know what the heck she wants me to do or what he wants me to do. And this lady's crazy. Did she make this assignment up 5 minutes before class, right? And that's going to be a very unfavorable situation. But if you're like, I know exactly what is expected from me, there's a rubric, we talked about it in class, like, all right, I'm good to go. So that's an example of that. And then, so we talked about the task being cleared on the power position, not that I'm in charge, I'm the boss, but like the person of power knows what they're talking about and they want to help. Like, hey, I want to write this grant and this is what we're going to do and you're going to help me, and I want to take your ideas about activities and things, and I'm going to be the one who submits it and does all this, but I want your help, not being weak, like, all right, team, I'm really stressed. We have this grant that needs to be got done and I don't know the topic and I need you to write this. Like, have that power, confidence, but to delegate roles and to show that you're in power and you know what you're talking about, but to include your team. And then the leader-member relations. Are you easily approachable? Are you clear? Do you get along with your staff, right? I mean, gosh, I'm sure we've all maybe had a boss who was kind of terrifying or scary. Like I remember once I had to quit a job once, and I like literally was crying in the bathroom for like 20 minutes before I quit because she was just so scary. I was like, I don't know how to talk to her, right? And then we might have had other bosses that are just so great and we want to work hard because we really like them. We want to make them proud. They're a good leader and they've taught us a lot and are helpful. So what this theory says as well is the possessing of knowledge, skills, and abilities to respond to changing situations. So your job's always going to change. That's one of the constants in life. Everything's always changing. I'm learning that about being a parent. I get him in this great schedule and then boom, he's ready to change a nap, or he doesn't want his bottle anymore, right? It's just like, how do I respond to this? What do I do? And that's how it is with a good leader, with leadership. There's always something changing, and how do you respond to it? How do you take care of your staff? So if you go on page 199, you might not have it open, so I'm going to read it to you real quick. So this is a case study about a situation at work. And just before quitting time, Joe, the hospital's health information department manager, watched his 3 new trainees struggling with the complicated medical record software they had to learn to do their jobs. Across the room, Betty, who was an expert with the software, was preparing to leave for the day. Her tasks were done ahead of time as usual. Also, as usual, she gathered up her belongings and left without saying goodbye to her coworkers. So just in the story, there's this lady named Betty. She's very knowledgeable. She knows her stuff. There's these 3 new people that don't know anything about the software, and the boss is going, I need these people to learn about this. But Betty's really not engaged with them. What do I do here? So he said, there goes the answer to my problem. If only I knew how to reach her. With her expertise and experience in using the system, Betty would seem to be an ideal coach for the new employees. However, she had asked not to take on training duties when Joe asked her to. Her reasons were that she wasn't comfortable telling anyone what to do. She didn't want the responsibility for someone else's work, and she preferred to work by herself on the job. So Joe's in this predicament, right? How do I get Betty to help train and mentor these 3 new people? Because I'm getting the vibe here Joe doesn't know how to do it. So Joe was stunned by her refusal. He enjoyed helping his coworkers and thought that this is why he advanced to department manager last year instead of Betty. Ouch, right there. You see that Joe was advanced, he was promoted, and Betty wasn't. And Betty had more seniority and experience than he did. Since her work was excellent, Joe hesitated to make it an either you do what I want you to do or you're in trouble situation. He believed that employees worked best at what they wanted to work at. But his problem still remained. There was no money in training budget, and there were no other employees who were as skilled as Betty. Was there an approach he hadn't thought of? So then we're going to look at Betty for a second. As she walked into the parking lot, she thought, how could Joe think I would lift a finger to help him? I should have been the one promoted to department manager last year, not him. I'm the one with seniority and the necessary experience. In fact, I was the one who trained Joe when he first joined the hospital. So I'm thinking there maybe she doesn't want to train people because she trained Joe, and look, he got promoted and she didn't. Just because he has a master's in health information management, and I should not have been the determining factor, but obviously senior management thought so when they selected him over me. I could care less what happens from this point forward. I have 5 more years until I retire with full pension. As long as my work continues to be excellent, there is no way Joe can upset my plans. Not that he could, since he hardly understands the complexity of the software we use. It requires a person with a lot of technology and experience. So looking at this theory that I just talked about, explain what style of leadership Joe should use in the current situation. So let's look at this, for example. People need training. Joe needs Betty to do it. Betty doesn't really want to. She's not too fond of Joe because he got promoted. How do you think Joe could go across getting Betty to help? Because these people need trained. So how could he have a positive task structure, power position, and leader-member relation? What do you all think? If you were in a situation, maybe you were Betty, for example, how would you want to be approached to help? Or pretend you're Joe. How do you think would be the best way to get Betty to be involved? What do you think?
Part of being a leader is developing the skills of the people who work for you. And I mean, it's Joe's response. Betty's hurting because she didn't get promoted and she feels she deserved to be promoted. Joe is now the leader. Part of his responsibility is developing Betty's leadership skills and figuring out, I hate saying deficits, but what does she need to develop into the leader? And the other thing is that as a leader, you can't know everything and be an expert on everything. Your employees do, but it's also Joe's responsibility to figure out if he doesn't have the skills to train the new employees, he's got to be able to tap into it somewhere and use his resources. So I think he has to approach Betty and figure out how he can make sure she knows that he recognizes her value.
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you. And he's in a pickle if he doesn't do anything about it for the next 5 years and Sue leaves. He doesn't know any of that. Sue, go ahead. Oops, you're muted.
Oh no, Hi guys. So I think there's a couple of things we have to be careful with is that this could easily become an interesting power dynamic, which I think is what we're seeing, is that this is how she has power by being passive aggressive and basically allowing Joe to fumble. So I think Joe's got to figure out how to reevaluate that power play. I think he needs Betty on his side. Obviously, she feels underappreciated and she's got skills that are not being reimbursed. I do feel like this could be a little bit of fact that Betty is a woman that might have something to do with it in the technology world. And people can say, oh, no, that's not it. But I wouldn't doubt that there's something to do with that. So Betty needs to be elevated in her position, and regardless of budget constrictions, he needs to advocate for her and show Betty that he's really on her side and that she's a valued employee. And then the other issue is that he should make this part of her performance appraisal. Like, let's make sure that if I can't get you this raise now, I want to promote you. Let's put this part of your performance appraisal. If we achieve this, then this is what I want to advocate for. I want you to have a $10,000 raise or something like that. And this also, Betty, this should be bringing her to the table, because if you're not brought to the table, you're what's for dinner. And Betty should use this too as a point of negotiation, because really this sounds like this team could go far, but Joe has really got to utilize the fact that his resources are, and Betty's a great one.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned a couple points too, and I actually see this a lot with my dad. He has a job now that he's an electrician, and after COVID, he does purchasing and stuff like that. I don't know if I ever actually fully understand his job, but he works from home now, and he works for a new company, and his two new bosses are maybe my age, right? So my dad's like, a year away from retirement, and some of these guys, like, they're just like rude and they think they're entitled and stuff like that. And my dad, like, it just has this attitude like I got a year to retirement, and like they're kind of in a pickle because my dad's been doing this for so long, and like they don't have him training his replacement by any means. And I think they just kind of like use him for stuff and then let him do his thing. And like my dad's attitude is so negative towards work, and I'm like, I really wish that they would just like have a talk with him, like, hey, like, we appreciate you. Like, can you mentor some of the new guys? My dad would love to do that, but he's got this attitude like, you guys are making the big bucks. You're my boss, figure it out. And that's really not a fun attitude to have at work to go into every day. And I think sometimes just have this conversation. Like, what if Joe just like took Betty out to lunch one day and was just like, hey, like, what would make your life easier at work? Like, I know that you're probably happy I got this position, or, like, I don't know what he could really say, but just by trying, maybe the show that, she's appreciated and stay like that. And then, what can I do to, make the next 5 years great? And how can we train these people? And what do you need out of it? And I think just basically having that conversation. Anyone else? Okay. So let me go over to, we're going to go through a couple other ones real quick. So this was a quote that was in his theory. Considering the captain of an airliner during its final landing, we would hardly want the captain to turn to the crew for discussion on how to land the plane. So it's important to know when and how to address your team. You want them to be included. You want them to be in the decision-making process, but leader doesn't go to them for every question, right? Like, how should I handle this? How should I, like, think about, I guess, surgery is another good thing. If I'm, having surgery, I want my surgeon to be confident and make those final decisions, not ask the first year med student, what blade would you use? What would you do this? They're bleeding and their blood pressure is, 180 over 100. What medicine should they give? Like, you got to make some important decisions sometimes. So another theory, we're going to go through all these kind of quick, because gosh, as I said, this could be a really long one. But so in the first one, that he was basically saying just your leadership style is what your leadership style is. And House's path said leadership styles are adaptable and that they should be constantly changing based off who you're working with. So effective leaders provide the path, the support, and resources to assist subordinates in attaining organizational goals. So there's 4 different types of leadership behavior you'll read about in this chapter: directive, supportive, participative, and achievement oriented. And whatever one you have leads to outcomes. Now, one's always better than the other. They should be constantly evolving. And so that's going to be one of the theories that you look at as well. So did you have a question, Laura? Is that from last time with the hand raise up? Alrighty, so I'm just gonna share some personal examples. I'm not gonna go through all of these, but I was just kind of thinking of some leaders I've had in my life, and if you want to share one of a good example you can think of a leader in your life, or a coach or teacher, or a bad one, feel free to share those, and I'll give an opportunity to do that one. But let me pick, let me go over this one with a student coordinator. So my husband's a student coordinator for all the CRNA students out here in Phoenix. And, you know, he's pretty fair. He understands how hard it was to be a CRNA and do all your hours. So he understands, but he also realizes it's a lot of work, and he wants these students to be prepared. So he's kind of at a good spot for it. And the students cannot do more than 50 hours a week. But he recognizes they should probably be doing about like 40 hours a week to, you know, get the experience they need. And past program coordinators would make them do all 50, right? Well, this is how they learn. And he's like, you know, I care about their mental health and their sleep, and I want them to enjoy the program. So he has them do 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts. And there was one student who she's having some mental health issues, and she needed another day off to go to therapy. And so he said, all right, we'll do 3 12-hour shifts, go from there. And I thought that was very accommodating, but not being a pushover. But she's in the OR a long day. And she was texting him and basically saying she wanted to count her prep time towards her hours and leave by 6. And he was saying to her, like, and he was like, what doesn't she understand? Everyone's doing 40 and letting you do 36. And now she wants to do, I think she wanted to do 30 hours. And I said to her, or I said to him, I said, ask her, because he was like ready to lose it. And I said, say to her, do you really think that doing 30 hours a week will prepare you to be the future CRNA you want to be? And I said, and if she says yes, then we can go for it. And she just replied yes. And then I was like, you know, we had to explain to her, like, no, you need to be doing more. I understand this, but like, you can't, you're not going to be ready. You're not going to hit your hours. So it's kind of that hard position where, like, I don't want to be a pushover and just go, yeah. And then students are down doing 10 hours a week, but you don't want to be too hard that students are breaking down and not finishing the program, right? So being a good leader can be very hard sometimes. And I'll share this one real quick, because this is a funny one. When I worked at the movie theaters, I was in high school, and the dreaded job was cleaning the bathrooms. We're 16, we hated cleaning the bathrooms. And I remember my friend, his name was Steven, we're still really good friends to this day, but he was 2 years younger than me, and he got promoted to usher supervisor. And I was so mad because I thought I deserved the job. And I remember one day, right, we still laugh about this, like one day, it was like 2 minutes before my shift ended, I was leaving. He's like, Amy, I'm going to need you to clean the bathrooms. And I threw my broom down. I said, you go clean the bathrooms yourself. And I went and clocked out. He's like, why are you so angry? And I was like, you know, you could have just explained it in a nice way, like, hey, do you please mind doing it? But it was almost like a power trip. Like, you need to clean this because I got my usher supervisor badge, right? I mean, we were young. It was funny. But, you know, sometimes it's just the way you say it. You know, maybe going out of the way, like the CEO I was going to talk about, like, he would buy me lunch. He would come in my office and see how I was doing and how's grad school going and what are your plans afterwards, and, you know, just being kind and accepting. And did any of you ever have a good leader or a poor leader that you can think of? Seen a couple head nods. Anyone want to share anything? Katerina, what do you have?
I've been a shadow at a veterinary hospital starting when I was 16, and I now work at that same hospital. So now I work under all the managers that I used to shadow. And I remember even the way my managers would word things, like, I've stayed hours past my shift, and even the way they word things, like, they word it in a nice, kind way, like you mentioned. And they're always like, do you mind staying? You can leave if you really need to. But it's the way that they word things, like, you get that respect from them. And I've always gotten that from them. So it's made me happy and proud to work there.
Good. That's great. Anyone else? Yeah, Sue.
So, in nursing, I hate to tell you, but there are a plethora of bad leaders. And that's why I think nursing has such a large turnover.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Devin Bunch of the Vanderbilt Medical ICU was probably and probably will always be one of my favorite leaders. And he guided us through the COVID pandemic. And what was nice about him is that, and it wasn't just him, is that he had a team of leaders to help him. And the way they were developed was they hired people who really, had a passion to work in that field, but we did not believe in eating our young, and nor would we ever leave our colleague behind. So everyone was super helpful, and we had sort of a structure that empowered us all. We looked to our leader for experience and for guidance, but we were empowered to actually kind of lead, whether it be in our own career or the people around us. But also, he would never do anything shifty. He was very upfront of what he could do and what he could not do. And he would say, I can't give you an answer, but this is what I'm going to try to do. And he took our best interests to heart. And because of that, he got promoted at Vanderbilt and eventually did leave the MICU, which was unfortunate. But that was like a grounding philosophy, is that unit had a philosophy of what they expected from their leaders and their staff, and they kept that philosophy. And I really truly believe that is what to this day still makes it a great unit.
Good. That's awesome. Cause that's very true too. So like a lot of times, like nurses, when they go to nursing leadership positions, they have training as a nurse. They don't have an MBA. They don't have, leadership skills. And that's why sometimes it can be confusing. Same thing with academia, right? Like when you get a PhD, like that's a degree in like research in your topic area. Guess what? A lot of people aren't taught, like you might be a subject expert, but you're not a teacher, right? A lot of you don't have a degree in education. So like you can have all this knowledge, but teaching it can be a completely different thing, right? Like, how do I make this lesson? How do I make this engage? Like, and it can be very confusing sometimes. So it's very true. That's why I think it's so important to constantly be going to mentorship, seminars or leadership, or just educating yourself on that. So thank you for that. I'm gonna minimize you guys real quick. Okay, so then this one's super basic here. This is just talking about boss-centered leadership versus subordinate-centered leadership. And it can just, go back and forth, right? So this is just the manager makes the decision and announces it, all the way to the manager permits subordinates to function within defined limits. They might sell the decision, present ideas, and invite questions. And it's going to go around on a continuum. Sometimes the manager just has to make a decision and announce it. It might be something like, think about like during COVID, like when all these people in higher ups, they just had to make an announcement. Like they didn't have time to go over this. And other times, maybe like this is something that I need to present to the group and see what they want to do, because this affects everyone. We don't have to make an urgent decision on it. So this can kind of just go back and forth there. This one is going to look at delegating style, participating style, selling style, and telling style. And I have this all in the book, and all these different leadership styles are highlighted as well. But leaders should adapt their leadership style among task, behavior, relationship behavior, and level of maturity of the subordinate. So say, for example, I'm working with an undergraduate who's in their first semester of college, and they have to write a literature review. I'm definitely going to handle my style of working with them a little bit better. Maybe I'll sit down with them and be like, do you know how to use APA? And this is what an in-text citation is. And if you write a sentence that isn't yours, you have to cite it, or that's plagiarism, right? And let's go over this and let's practice, right? But if I'm working with MPH students or in their last semester, you might be like, I got it. I know how to do a lit review. Just let me sit back, and I'm gonna maybe if they want more questions about how do I synthesize this better, or how do I write more scientifically, right? And so my leadership style is going to change about our relationship, your maturity level on the topic as well. And as the employee cultivates the knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform at increasing levels of expectation, the manager modifies the relationship style. So, I would probably most likely never ask a freshman who doesn't know their major, hey, do you want to sit down and write this like $1 million grant with me? And we can come up with goals and objectives, right? That would probably be a little bit silly, but maybe I could invite them, hey, we're having this meeting for a grant. Do you want to sit in? And I've done this when I was a student, and you kind of just like invite them to watch what's happening and then brainstorming ideas, right? So that kind of changes a little bit about their level and, how long you've known them in maturity there. And their confidence as well. So great leaders, they're grateful for their members' contributions. Bad leaders, they think every member can be replaced easily and won't value them. I've heard people say this before too, like sadly, it was, I don't remember where it was, but some organization, and they weren't treating people very well, and they're like, and their answer was just, we can just get volunteers to do that. We can just get volunteers to do that. I'm like, well, if you treat your volunteers poorly, you're not going to have a lot of volunteers anymore, right? So I promised I would end with some quotes from Michael Scott about, leadership. Sometimes you have to take a break from being the kind of boss that always is trying to teach people things. Sometimes you just have to be the boss of dancing. Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. And then this one, I didn't remember this one. Granted, maybe this was not the best idea, but at least we have care enough, or at least we care enough about our employees that we are willing to fight for them, right? Michael Scott might have been a terrible boss, but he was loyal and he would stand up for his employees and want the best for him. And then I don't know if any of you have ever watched Suits before. If any of you watched that, okay, all right. Some of you, yes, some of you know. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but I thought this was an interesting article. I'll send this link when I upload the slides. But my husband and I are currently watching it right now, and it's so funny because there's Harvey and there's Lewis. Lewis is the guy on the left, Harvey's the guy on the right, and they have very different leadership styles. And my husband drives me crazy because like every episode he goes, "Oh, you're Lewis." I'm like, I'm not Lewis. And he always says I'm Lewis. And I'm like, I don't think I'm Lewis. But I kind of actually do have some of Lewis' leadership styles, which he's not wrong on. But they're not unique to the world or fiction. Many successful leaders in the world exhibit some of their traits and characteristics. So for example, Elon Musk, as many of you know, he is known for his confidence and charisma, much like Harvey on the right. And then Jeff Bezos, the founder of CEO on Amazon, he's known for his analytical approach, attention to detail, much like Lewis. And they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Like Harvey is sometimes arrogant and cocky and things like that. And Lewis can sometimes be insecure or, want approval from someone too. But this is an excellent article. I was reading it. It's about like the leadership styles of both of them. And you don't have to read it, but if you have seen Suits before, you might find it interesting there. So in conclusion, excellent leaders know how to use the correct leadership style for a given situation. They help individuals recognize and maximize their full potential as team members, and they energize and engage people by helping them create a meaningful sense of purpose and direction at their work. Whew, done at 8:08. Yes, I try to get done. I know if I lived in Tennessee right now, I'd be ready for bed. So I try not to keep you till 8:15. Yeah, I know it was popping up on Netflix so many times, and I was just like, all right, let's watch it. And now I'm obsessed with it. So yeah, Lewis is absolutely everything. Yeah, thank you, Laura. But yeah, check out that show. We can talk about it sometimes. Did you have something, Laura?
Have you watched White Collar, which has absolutely nothing to do with leadership, but
I'll add it to my list.
no, if you like Suits, because that's what Suits reminds me of, is I did the same thing with White Collar. Although you could probably say that there's different styles with that. And that's the other one, very similar, where it's like there's the relationships, but each episode is kind of self-contained, and it also has the dry humor going through it. So
awesome.
Yeah,
my problem is I have like 10 different series going and I never finish any of them. So
I know. No, I'm the same way. But yeah, I'm obsessed with Lewis right now, and I love it that Natasha said that too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know if you guys are all just lying by saying you like Lewis because I said I'm like Lewis, but thank you. That makes me feel great. See, Lewis needs that.
Lewis is he is the perfect fit for that show. His sarcasm, his personality, all of that put together.
Yeah, right. I like it. You guys don't have to come the rest of the semester. You all just get A's. So no, but seriously, thank you. I'm sorry this was a really quick lesson. But hopefully you've been enjoying the material on leadership. I will get a lot of the stuff graded this week. Thanks for your patience with that. Stan, if you have any questions, otherwise, I think we meet next week again. So I'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.